The story begins in a dark and devastating place dominated by shadows and abysses. Soon we see that a young man appears to be gravely wounded in his chest. With a slight smile on his face, the brave hero seems to fight for his life. But we soon realize that this smile belongs to an audacious young man. Even with his face marked by countless wounds, he decides to face whatever is hurting him. In the midst of that destruction, an unnameable creature emerges, a terrible figure with a female body, but possessing diabolical powers. This faceless creature stares at our brave hero with a unique and terrifying gaze. Her body is covered with numerous limbs and each arm seems to wield a different weapon. Without hesitation, the evil creature decides to confront our protagonist, and her attack power seems to be grand and tremendous. However, our brave blue-eyed warrior is ready to face any challenge. Chaos is near, and it seems the entire universe depends on this fighter. Yet, before we can discover how this battle will end, letters begin to appear. It looks more like the ending of any random adventure book. And to our surprise, it really was an adventure book. Our protagonist is lying in bed and is just an ordinary boy who seems to have finished yet another novel on his phone. After taking a deep breath, Chang Ting, our teenager, realizes that the story he was reading has really come to an end. Impatient, he scrolls through his tablet to check that the story is truly over, and confirms that it is. More than that, furious that the adventure has ended, the teenager throws the tablet on the bed, very irritated. While taking his first morning pee, an alert pops up on his tablet, but he doesn't see it. It seems our adventure in this magical world is just beginning. Hours pass, and the next day the sky is blue, showing that a new moment has begun. Chang Ting appears quite well dressed with his stylish clothes as he approaches the entrance of his school. Our protagonist shows deep irritation because some commotion is taking place in front of his school, and he immediately thinks it's a protest. However, our blue-eyed teenager realizes he must be mistaken. To his surprise, as he approaches the crowd, he notices that an entire building has disappeared. Ting starts sweating cold as he cannot believe what his eyes are showing. There was supposed to be a huge building in front of him. Emptiness takes over the environment, and what seemed like a normal day in that teenager's life takes on alarming proportions. While Chang Ting is paralyzed trying to understand what happened, he realizes the crowd around him is starting to panic. However, the young man is a rational thinker and tries to stay logical. Perhaps a new demolition company is conducting some tests. Walking slowly, the teenager reaches his school and heads toward room number 16. As he opens the door, Chang is brutally surprised by an unrecognizable creature that jumps in front of him. However, to our surprise, is not some terrible creature, but just Ting's blonde friend. In desperation, his friend starts theorizing about the possible end of the world approaching. Nevertheless, even with the blondie's desperation, Chang Ting tries to stay calm and gets annoyed with the boy. Full of enthusiasm, Ting's crazy friend starts showing him that everyone is talking about this on social media. Starting to feel uncomfortable, Chang Ting scratches his head, telling his friend it must be a coincidence. With an evil look, the crazy friend asks if he has never heard about the end of the world in various books. It seems the end of the world is indeed near. In a quick flash of consciousness, a teenager tries to argue, but words fail him at that moment. Full of sarcasm, Ting's friend complains that even at the end of the world, he pulls out the tablet to read the novel. When he grabs the device, the young man reads a frightening message informing him that the book he was reading has been deleted. However, this was no ordinary book. It was a book that spoke about this possible end of the world. Both realize that the book also has a moment where the protagonists talk about the end of the world. It is at this moment that Chang Ting's world seems to collapse and fiction starts turning into reality. Leaving through the school corridors, he makes up some excuse to shake off his friend. His friend cries when he realizes he'll miss his buddy. Running through the city streets, our hero starts remembering that in the book he read, there was a portal that led to another dimension. Time is running out, and Ting needs to be fast if he wants to prevent a catastrophe. Fearlessly, the teenager runs among the people who seem to be living their lives normally. It was right there in front of his eyes, a portal with the number 1. With heavy breathing, an old man appears to say something to him. After arriving at the place indicated in the book, the boy tries to remember how this was supposed to happen in the story he read. Quickly, he remembers that there were a total of 999 portals connected to a terrible spatial abyss. And as described in the book, today at midnight, terrible beings from the abyss of darkness will invade the earth. Monstrous and horrifying creatures will come to life, indescribable and terrifyingly strong beings, and terror will take over the universe. Terrible monsters of different levels will invade the planet, and even those who are strong won't be able to stop them. In the book, with the arrival of the terrifying monsters, there was only one path to salvation. An order of defenders against evil would be able to join forces to save humanity. It was the only chance. The first beings to appear would be level 1 monsters, terrible, destructive wolves that devour everything. Chang Ting tries to think if he would be strong enough to do something like the protagonist of his book. He remembered well that level 2 monsters would be unimaginable aquatic beings. Even without knowing if things would happen the same way as in the book, Ting seemed to feel strong enough for the fight. Our hero decides to gather what he has to buy some things he will need. It won't be easy at all to fight a monster, so he will need some tools. A girl passes by him and realizes she knows the boy from school. Someone very angry starts yelling at her over the phone and tells her to go home immediately. Without thinking twice, the girl, who should be in class, agrees and ends up leaving Chang Ting for another time. Meanwhile, our boy is using his intelligence to build an incredible armor. With the tools he bought at the store, he builds something that is looking really cool. Looking at a gigantic spear, the young man realizes he is nervous and that he will need courage if he wants to face the creatures. Night falls, and with it comes the hope that everything will happen as in the book. However, even as midnight approaches, the place seems empty. There are only 20 minutes left until the time mentioned in the book, and our boy is ready to wipe out the enemy race. Looking closely at the clock, he realizes that the time has come and he will need a lot of courage. 3, 2, 1. The time for battle has arrived. And just like in the book, Ting realizes that the portal is open and no one is safe. Terrible beings from the abyss emerge to attack the boy. As predicted, the portal opened, and now it is time for humanity to face the consequences. A terrible sidereal light shines, showing that things will be far grander than they were in the story. However, to his misfortune, it is not just one light, but several red lights that take over the entire city. Widening his eyes, he realizes this is no joke. The time has come. In front of him appears a terrible wild creature that resembles a monstrous, beastly, and tremendously ferocious wolf. For the first time, our protagonist feels fear running through his veins, and it is truly a point of no return. The night becomes surrounded by darkness, and Chang Ting realizes that the wolf is indeed a creature from the depths of the abyss. As in the novel, the creature arrives thirsty for red juice and will do anything to destroy the hero. Trembling to his core, Ting tries to stay calm in front of that terrible animal. Focused, the beast with devouring eyes stares at our warrior, who also does not show insecurity. Before the young man could prepare, the terrible abyssal wolf charges ferociously at him. It is at this moment that the boy realizes this is not a game. It is reality, and the night beast is coming straight for him. Quickly, the warrior manages to dodge. And as the best defense is always attack, the brave one grabs his spear and prepares to face the wolf. Without thinking twice, Chang Ting thrusts his improvised spear into the beast's belly, which spittles all its filthy liquid into the air. The beast growls in desperation, trying to free itself from the spear, and the young man starts trembling, realizing what he has just done. Even trying to fight, the terrible abyssal wolf takes a deep breath and collapses in front of the boy, who wonders if he succeeded. The young man is scared because he realizes he is now entering an unexpected battle. However, a slight smile appears on his face. The end of the world is beginning. The young man finds it amusing because he realizes the terrible monster was no match for his talent. And before Ting could think, the ferocious animal starts staring at him. A terrible howl comes from the depths of the beast's soul as, with the spear still lodged in it, it cries out for help. However, something supernatural happens, as if the young man had just finished a video game battle. A message appears in the universe stating that the young man has just become the #1 human for defeating the terrible wolf. At that moment, the young man realizes he has just achieved his first victory. Slowly analyzing the message that appears to him, the hero feels very accomplished. And soon after, he feels a glorious power rising from within himself. The ancestral spirit of the terrible wolf takes over his body. Fiercer and stronger, the young man now possesses new abilities after his first victory. The glorious power of the creature invades Chang Ting's soul, and he feels increasingly stronger. Now he is no longer just a curious young man, but a true warrior determined to save all of humanity. After his transformation, he has just received the alert that he has acquired within himself the soul of the lone wolf. Thus emerges a new champion filled with power, agility, and great reflexes. As it was written in the book, our protagonist has now received all the energy contained in the soul of a wolf. And without thinking twice, the young man starts testing his fantastic new abilities. Very powerful, he is ready to face whatever comes. With clenched fists, he strikes the concrete. Amazingly, his punch destroys everything in front of him. A superhero has just been born. But the young man is still frightened by the size of his current power. A mysterious artifact appears in front of him, one he knows very well is an Abyssal Seed. Throwing it down his throat, the protagonist tries to absorb the powers of that artifact. His pupil dilates as he realizes he has just acquired one of the greatest powers in existence. Fully empowered, he can feel all the blue magic within his soul. But all that power seems to cause him a kind of nausea as he is still getting used to all of this. He has just received another ability, the power to launch his swords quickly. It is at this moment that he realizes humanity depends on him. At the right time, Chang Ting will be able to use his entire new arsenal to save humanity from this supernatural attack. The next step now is to understand how things will unfold in the coming days. Back at the school building, all the students seem to be engaged in a terrible conversation. And before Ting could understand what was happening, his friend jumps on top of him. With no time for nonsense, the young man dodges the boy, who ends up crashing to the ground. The blonde friend noticed that something had changed about the boy. To prove he was right, his friend starts pointing out that the news about monsters has spread. Indeed, they seem to be facing a terrible apocalyptic attack that will culminate in the end of the world. Showing his tablet, the boy states that several people are posting that whoever kills the creatures gains their powers. However, Chang Ting tries to fake a certain disinterest with his friend. He tries to show that he doesn't believe it, and soon his friend gets irritated. But the blonde friend keeps insisting that it is possible to gain superpowers from all of this. The young man ends the conversation by making it clear that he doesn't want to hear about it anymore, leaving his friend very surprised. The teacher enters the classroom and starts asking the students to stop spreading false rumors about the end of the world. However, Ting, knowing very well what he has experienced, states that in a few days they won't be able to call all this false rumors. His friend gets very irritated with what is happening. After a long day, the bell rings, putting everyone on alert. After the announcement, the teacher informs that class has finally ended. In a heavy atmosphere, Chang Ting's friend approaches and invites him to go to the sports court to talk more privately. The young man doesn't quite understand what is happening, but decides to follow his friend. Some other students also take the opportunity to hang out in the court. Without mincing words, Ting's friend starts a long interrogation. Realizing that the young man won't say anything about the events, he starts to cry. Continuing his drama, the blonde boy begins to fall into a crying crisis. He gets irritated and for the first time calls Takedo by his name, saying that he has things to say but that it requires secrecy. He complains to his friend, stating that he is indeed someone trustworthy. The teenager, now full of power, asks his friend to pay attention to what he will be able to do with just the tip of his finger. Simply by touching a piece of the staircase, it immediately crumbles like a cracker. The blonde nearly has a heart attack when he realizes that his friend has just broken a block of concrete with the tip of his fingers. And without further delay, Ting finally tells his friend the whole truth, making it clear that he has acquired new abilities. Takedo seems increasingly fascinated by his friend, especially when he realizes that those hands were the ones that defeated a wolf. While he was holding his friend's hand, the beautiful girl from the class looks at it suspiciously. Seeing that scene, the girl imagines that they are flirting. The young man tells his friend that in 3 days the monsters will attack the city again and that they need to be prepared. That young man needs to be ready to also gain the abilities of his friend. However, Chang Ting is increasingly clear in stating that this needs to be a secret between friends. Time passes slowly after that conversation. While walking back home, our hero keeps remembering that the next attack will happen far from there. He will need to prepare to face the terrible monster that resembles a giant ape. However, he must prepare because this monster's abilities are far superior. The next monster from the abyssal depths is a terrible gorilla. But if the young man follows the right steps, he will be able to defeat the creature and acquire new powers. Interrupting his thoughts, a woman appears in front of him. Looking closely, it could only be his aunt. The boy's aunt grabs him by the arm and calls him to have dinner at her house. The young man seems annoyed and asks if his uncle isn't home at that moment. The boy's aunt, realizing what's going on, tells her nephew to calm down. Irritated, the young man thanks her for the concern but knows that now he can defend himself alone. Watching her nephew, she observes as he heads home, irritated. The young man's house is a complete mess, with bottles of alcohol scattered and leftover food everywhere. A red-haired kid talks about how Chang Ting is not at home. The boy's father, who apparently is his uncle, mocks him while drinking something. That drunk is claiming to be the owner of the house that actually belongs to the young man. Without warning, the hero delivers a powerful kick to the door, scaring the two scoundrels. Irritated and exuding all his power, Ting gets angry at seeing his uncle in that condition. His mischievous cousin gets up trying to defend his father. However, it only took the drunk father to raise his hand to silence him. His weird uncle approaches the young man trying to calm the situation. Getting close to the boy, he says that since he is about to go to college, he should look for a place to live on his own. Pointing a check in the boy's face, his scoundrel uncle tries to bribe him to leave the house. And before the young man can answer, his bratty cousin butts into the negotiation. Knowing he has enough power to defeat these fools, Ting tries to warn them that they are the ones who should leave. Realizing he is being threatened, his uncle gets furious at the nephew's boldness. Trying to stay calm, the young man starts throwing in their faces that they never helped his parents. They never helped when his parents needed money for the hospital the most. Trying to flip the situation, the boy's uncle starts threatening, claiming that he actually has rights to that house. Seizing the moment, the mischievous cousin throws in Chang Ting's face that he doesn't have parents to defend him. Going beyond the threats, the red-haired cousin even calls our brave hero a dog. Trying to hold back all his power, the young man tells his cousin to shut up and take back what he just said. However, not knowing he's talking to his superhero, the scoundrel keeps mocking. Not only him, but that bastard of an uncle also keeps making jokes. Unaware of the young man's strength, the cousin challenges him to a duel, saying he's going to beat him until he's purple. And before they could prepare, the teenager clenches his fist and smashes the face of his damn uncle. Taking the boy's punch, his body flies toward the ground, leaving his cousin terrified. "Bastard," he shouts, holding a glass bottle to smash it over Chang's head. But he is quickly surprised by a beautiful kick straight to the stomach. Without holding back, our champion makes sure to teach that brat a lesson. With his whole body shaking, the mischievous little cousin rides in pain while cursing the boy. Having no patience for all that conversation, the young man decides to leave that place and go straight to his room. Getting up from the floor, both the uncle and cousin are now crying in pain, having been seriously beaten by the boy. However, he has more serious problems to solve. He needs to pack his things because the next attack is near. Nevertheless, he makes it clear that he will avenge the memory of his parents no matter what. Walking past the scoundrels with a suitcase in hand, he soon catches the intruder's attention. Announcing that he's leaving, the young man warns that they will have 3 days to make a decision. With their hands where they were attacked, both get more and more nervous. His face was still swollen from the blow, and he wondered if the boy was actually giving up the house. Now it's the cousin who is getting irritated and thirsty for revenge. Far from there, he arrives at a very beautiful place that looks like a hotel. Approaching the receptionist, the young man says he wants a room for the next 2 nights. With a seductive look, a girl offers him something more than just lodging, like a private massage. Embarrassed by the proposal he received, he starts wondering if that hotel is the right place for a student. Appearing nervous, the receptionist tries to touch his skin. Quickly, the boy pulls his hand away since he wasn't expecting that, and the girl understands and gives him the room number. From the window, we can see that it is an apparently promiscuous environment. With heavy breathing, we see that the boy is focused on something. In the next scene, a girl seems to be making funny noises. But before you think anything inappropriate, he was hearing noises coming from the room next door. Apparently, that wasn't an appropriate hotel for a young man his age. But now there was no turning back. However, the noise coming from the room next door was becoming increasingly unbearable. Inside room 210, we see that there are more people annoyed by the noise. 2 women are complaining that they have to endure that racket for a greater purpose. However, Sakura-sama, the girl with pink hair, is increasingly irritated by what she hears. Annoyed with the situation, the young Sama interrogates Mayo, the woman with short white hair. Appearing more experienced, Mayo starts advising the girl that she needs to take a deep breath. However, it seems Sama gets irritated with the woman's advice. Mayo gives a slight smile, saying there's not much to be done about this situation. Looking into the distance, the white-haired woman can only think about the end of the world and the monster invasion. Now she looks firmly at Sama and says that she will need to be strong. The girl nods, saying she can handle it. Then breathe for 10 seconds, girl. However, the young Sakura-sama gets irritated again by how calmly Mayo handles things. 2 days pass, and we see that it's already dark and midnight is approaching. We see that Ting is with his friend at the place where things will happen. The young man is confident that this is where the creatures will appear. Takedo takes a deep breath and asks if his friend is confident that he can defeat the terrible beings of darkness. The cowardly friend quickly states that if anything dangerous happens, he will run away, but our hero assures him he can handle it. Seeing that situation, the young man wonders how they are still friends. Pulling out his glowing device, the young man confirms that there are exactly 30 minutes left until the attack. At that moment, the hero remembers how everything is supposed to happen according to the book. However, to the boy's surprise, something unexpected happens. Chang Ting grabs his friend by the neck and tries to hide from something that is about to arrive. Right before his eyes appear the 2 girls from the hotel, and he immediately recognizes Sama. Looking firmly at them, the young man cannot believe what he's seeing since they weren't in the book. Not understanding what is happening, the friends start wondering why they would be there. Taking a deep breath, the boy tries to find an answer and quickly realizes that they are also looking for the abyssal monsters. Looking at each other, both Mayo and Sakura-sama prepare themselves to face the challenge. After thinking hard, Takedo remembers that the girl's family is known for being part of the special police. Something told him that they were there to handle some secret police mission. But if those girls stay there, the young Chang Ting won't be able to accomplish his long-awaited and dreamed-of mission. Arriving at the marked spot with the number 2, the young woman wonders if that's where the monsters will appear. Mayo approaches the mark left on the ground and states that dangerous things will come as soon as the clock strikes midnight. However, it's necessary to stay on constant alert because the monsters that will emerge from there do not resemble those from the real world. Holding a massive bomb, Mayo is more than ready to face these creatures of darkness. And for you, a pistol with great caliber. Hold it tight and blow the monster's brains out. Sakura-sama seems to handle that pistol very well, and with fire in her eyes, she appears ready for combat. From the top of the court, the friends watch all that mess without really understanding what's going on. Taking a deep breath and trying to stay calm, Ting advises his friend. A terrible smoke starts to take over the area, and the warrior Mio seems ready. From afar, the young man watches everything that's happening and finds it strange that they are using a bomb as a weapon. They still don't know, but the first monster that will appear will be much more violent. But if anything happens, he would be here to protect them. The clock is approaching the set time, and along with it, the bomb's timer is armed. The countdown begins from the girl's mouth. When the clock struck midnight, both Sakura-sama and Mayo were ready to face the danger. A terrible curse is conjured at that place, and sinister forces emerge before everyone. The portal opens, and incredibly, the entire environment turns into cosmic horror. Before anyone can prepare, 2 creatures from the depths of the abyss appear. With a smile on his face, the young man curses at the girls for not being prepared for the monster's attack. Quickly, the incredible Mio grabs the bomb's remote and, without thinking much, presses the button. A massive explosion occurs, causing all the building's foundations to shake immediately. The intergalactic dust fills the area, and the 2 girls can finally celebrate. But it seems it's still too early to smile. In an attack position, the 2 join forces to face the creature that is still alive. It seems that only the first monster was defeated with a bomb explosion. The other terrible being, seeing that it must destroy those cursed ones, charges, thirsty for human flesh. What it didn't expect was that the warrior Mio was ready for combat. With her powerful laser weapon, the girl shoots at the dangerous creature. Before they can see the result of the shot, they decide to flee from that unhealthy place. The terrible beast decides to attack the girls without any mercy. Throwing a massive punch, it barely misses hitting our warrior's face. The creature looks at the ground and notices a gigantic rock that can be used as an attack weapon. And without thinking twice, it hurls that heavy concrete block toward the girls. Mio is hit hard in the back and ends up falling to the ground, begging Sakura-sama to run because she doesn't know she can hold on. At that moment, the young Sama looks into Mio's eyes and begs her to get up. The young girl then witnesses when that terrible beast stands imposingly and raises its fist. Knowing the pain she will face, the white-haired girl cries out for mercy. Immediately, the pink-haired girl quickly closes her eyes because she doesn't want to see her friend crushed. A deafening noise fills the environment, and unexpectedly, our savior appears, cruelly attacking that terrible beast. Smashed against the wall, the fearsome gorilla is left unconscious for a few moments. Strong and powerful, the young hero stands in front of the girl, making it clear that he will do anything to protect her. His hands are trembling because this one really hurt. With tears in her eyes, the young girl shows all her pain. Before she could look at Mio's body, she quickly realizes that she is okay and that this was not the end for her. Knowing that the beast can get up at any moment, the hero warns that the two girls need to leave. At that moment, the girl realizes she recognizes the boy from school and asks what he is doing there. However, much more important than knowing his reasons is getting out of there immediately. At that moment, the abominable creature rises from the shadows and launches a deadly blow against our hero. It seems that the giant ape is ready to unleash all its hateful power against Chang Ting. What it didn't expect was for the brave one to grab its furry fist with all his strength. Focusing to use all his attack power, the champion lets out a scream of rage. And then we see the terrible beast being launched once again against the construction walls. However, the boy's strength is starting to fade, and his attack power is becoming equal to the gorilla's. But this has a time limit, and he pulls out his secret weapon. The giant beast stares at our legendary fighter, believing it can devour him. Our hero leaps with his sharp spear to destroy the fearsome predator. Before the beast could defend itself, the young man tears the gorilla's skin with a fatal strike, causing juice to gush everywhere. With nothing else to do, the creature moans in pain from receiving that powerful attack. That blow was so strong that the beast's rotten body started spilling an infectious nectar and its power was dissipated. And as our warrior expected, a message appears before him congratulating him for the attack. As the beast lost all its power, the young man began to be rewarded for the glorious attack. A new ability seems to have been immediately unlocked after the bloody strike. Both Sakura-sama and Mio, upon seeing this, are immediately surprised. As the boy expected, everything is happening exactly as stated in the book. Increasingly proud of his work, the boy strikes a beautiful pose to receive praise. He just didn't expect that loudmouth Takeda would start complaining. Annoyed by that, Chang Ting makes a huge jump toward his friend. Grabbing the cowardly blonde by the neck, the boy suddenly has an idea. Remembering their deal, Ting wants his friend to gain new abilities as well. But before the cowardly friend could gather the courage, they hear a noise. Those girls were still there even after almost ruining their plans. Walking toward the two, they thank them for saving Sama, but remind them that the monster. Immediately, he cuts off the lecture to make it clear that it doesn't matter what she's going to say about the monster. However, Mio seems adamant about negotiating over the monster's body. Trembling with fear and trying to avoid any kind of conflict, Takedo tries to calm the situation. To shut the boy up, the young man offers him his powerful weapon. Now it's time for his friend to fulfill his part of the deal. Without thinking too much, the young man pierces a monster's skin. As expected, the boy, who until then was a coward, has just gained new abilities. Terrified of being attacked, the skinny guy screams to make sure the monster won't move again. With no patience for his friend, Chang Ting complains for him to finish the job once and for all. Now Sakura-sama has realized they won't gain anything from this, and Mio threatens our hero, declaring vengeance. Mio bids farewell to that situation, uttering words of hatred against the boy. Now that he's more powerful, the young man can only find those threats at least amusing. Before leaving, the girl declares that Sama's family is involved in a powerful project in that city, but the boy can't give an answer to the invitation and decides to think about it. Mio thanks him for the attention and says that if he needs anything, he should contact Sakura-sama. As the girls leave, the young man takes a deep breath, feeling relieved after such a long day. Now it's time for Chang Ting to devour that seed. Quickly, the young man swallows that powerful gem without knowing that he would immediately feel the power radiating through his body. Now he has become much more powerful than before. Moving his arms, he immediately starts feeling stronger. His strength is really increasing and it feels amazing. At that moment, his friend starts realizing that things are really getting serious. With his sweet and spontaneous way, the young man tries to calm his partner. Besides, he also says that the tool that appeared will help a lot. And we soon realize that that slingshot will be capable of hurting monsters. Smiling at his friend, Chang Ting realizes that the stats are excellent. Reflecting for a moment, Takedo thinks before speaking. Feeling safer with a pistol, the young man says that now he feels smarter. The truth is, he can only be grateful to his friend. Hugging each other, the friends head back to the hotel. Far from there, the girls are now in the car and Mayo apologizes to Sakura-sama for failing. The white-haired girl is determined to take a different approach. Clicking on her communicator, she speaks the name of our protagonist, destined to take revenge for what he did. Far from them, back at the luxurious hotel. The discomfort between the friends is only growing as they hear the noises coming from the room next door. Takedo, increasingly uncomfortable, asks his friend if it's really necessary to stay in that noisy room. Raising his hand to his friend, he says that he actually has a little money with him. Chang Ting replies that he has a little more money, but soon money will start to lose its meaning. The blonde friend looks at him with that mischievous look. And already knowing where this is going, the young man says that he's not going to let him use the phone to order whatever he's thinking. Embarrassed, the blonde insists that he didn't say anything and wasn't even thinking about it. Someone knocks on the door, shouting room service. Regardless of anything else, Chang Ting is starving, and it's time to eat. As he grabs the delivery, he checks out who came to drop it at his room. A gorgeous woman looks at him with a bold look, clearly wanting something more. Even from afar, that sweetheart drops some sweet words to the boy. A little embarrassed, the boy finds it cute and gets all giddy. Returning to the room, he takes a deep breath. While eating their meal, the young man remembers that tomorrow morning the sun will disappear before everyone's eyes. At that moment, a green light will shoot toward the planet, and everyone will call it the Emerald Sun. As the Emerald Sun rises, the entire planet will turn green and a voice will announce that Earth now belongs to the Abyssal Underworld. The world leaders will realize that the problem is serious and will look for ways to intervene in this situation. At this moment, when portals number 3 and 4 appear, humanity will be gaining more abilities. Meanwhile, humanity will create special forces to contain the advance. Scientists from around the world will try to contain and study the abyssal forces. However, as time progresses, the abyssal creatures will become increasingly stronger and more dangerous. While finishing their meal, they wondered about being the strongest on Earth. Chewing his food, Chang Ting took the opportunity to reflect with his friend about being just one of the strongest. After realizing what he was saying, he became alert. Takeda realizes that he is among the 30 most powerful people on the planet and feels incredible about it. However, he soon notices that something is wrong with his friend, who remains in a terrible state of alert. Without saying goodbye to his friend, he quickly gets up from the table and runs off, saying he'll be back soon. At that moment, his friend becomes very curious to understand what is happening. Then he feels sad because he is not as powerful as his friend. When he arrives at the reception, Chang Ting asks about the girl he saw, and they confirm that she is not one of them. With a cigarette in her mouth, the receptionist says that she is an outsider who comes occasionally. Smiling slowly, she cannot say what the girl was doing there since she could earn much more somewhere else. That was exactly why the boy was looking for that woman. The woman thinks that somehow the young man might know who that mysterious person is. Without hesitation, the boy asks which room that woman is staying in. But due to hotel rules, the receptionist cannot give that information. At that moment, our hero pulls out a handsome sum of money and throws it on the table. Apparently, the receptionist's price was quite low, and she quickly gives him the woman's room number. Taking a deep breath, the boy decides to go to the woman's room to learn more about who she is. Pressing number 5, the elevator immediately starts going up to the desired floor. That world is filled with 12 people with super abilities. If he can gather all these 12, he will soon be able to join forces to stop the attacks against the city. It seems that in the book, they find the 12 thanks to the ability of a woman with the power of a scorpion. Her name is never mentioned in the book, but she was an important character because she had a specific tattoo. The scorpion woman was a powerful escort who mistreated her captives. As the boy noticed very well, that girl also had a similar tattoo. When he arrived at the indicated door, he immediately became nervous because there was a chance he was completely wrong. According to the book, that woman hated men, so he needed to be careful. After ringing the doorbell, he waited for the woman to appear. Immediately, she appeared before him wearing inappropriate clothes. Trying to speak sensually, the girl begins to tempt our hero. Chang Ting apologizes for the inconvenience and tries to handle the situation. Touching his face, the girl asks him to come into the apartment. Never having felt this before, our hero begins to feel tempted. Whispering in the young man's ear, she tries to convince him that he will really enjoy it. Gathering the courage to face that challenge, the young man takes a deep breath and starts running away from the situation. That woman stares at the boy fleeing and says there must be something wrong with him. Desperate, the boy begins to blame himself for what happened and tries to sleep to forget what occurred. After a good night's rest, a day begins and Takedo opens his eyes. Getting up from bed desperately, he asks his friend to let him sleep a little longer. However, our brave friend is already watching the window and informs him that there is only 1 minute left until the great tragedy happens. Remembering the prophecy, the young man jumps out of bed to witness the event involving the sun. Furious with what he sees, the young man cannot believe what is happening before his eyes. A terrible laser beam appears among the clouds, descending directly from the sky. The true end of the world has just begun. Immediately, the city streets start turning completely green. Some people can't see because of this terrible green light that invades the entire city. Some pedestrians quickly realize what is happening, and when looking at the sky, they notice that the sun is completely green. In an impressive and brutal way, the emerald light invades life on Earth, and now it is impossible to escape what is coming.